Yeah, maybe if you could just grab the corner.
Bottom right corner. Yeah. There we go. Just pull it to the bottom. Pull it in. All right. Technologies here. We'll get started.
You may want to let Mary know that our Chamber of Commerce president is
Okay.
here.
Sorry, we also have a couple guests in the audience. Maybe we have Winona from the radio station, and we have our Chamber of Commerce president Tom Morris here as well tonight.
Hello, folks.
Hello. So we'll get started here. It's 5:59, but moved by Councillor McTaggart, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that the Council of the Town of Kindersley having established quorum called the March 22nd, 2016 special meeting of Council to order at the time of 5:59 p.m. All those in favor? Motion carried. And moved by Councillor Beaver, seconded by Councillor McTaggart, that the Council of the Town of Kindersley adopt the March 22nd, 2016 special meeting of Council agenda as presented. All those in favor? Motion is carried. So what I'll do, if I could, Mr. Eaton, is I believe you've got a list of our questions, and you're going to kind of go through them, I believe, and answer them as best you can throughout the process, and then leave some room for questions at the end of it. Is that right?
Yeah. What I think I'd like to do is I kind of prepared a bit of a presentation here that I think answers all of your questions, not necessarily, or all the questions that I can answer, not necessarily in the order they are that you presented, but I thought if I could sort of run through these, sort of tell our story a little bit, and then sure, I'd be absolutely open for any questions you might have.
Okay, no, that's perfect. I've got a list of the questions in front of me here as well. But if you wanna run with it, please feel free to go ahead.
Okay, you're hearing me okay? Everybody in the room is hearing me okay?
You bet.
Okay. Let me get started then. Humboldt became Saskatchewan's 13th city in November of 2000, immediately following the October municipal elections, which, by the way, elected almost a completely new council. 5 of the 6 councillors were new, and the mayor was new. The election issues at the time that resulted in that significant change didn't have anything to do with city status. It had to do with other issues. The previous mayor was Doug Still. I wanted to get hold of him to talk a little bit about this, but never had a chance. He wasn't available, but he and his council did all the groundwork leading up to the application and to the decision. And so they did a lot of research, and they did a lot of looking at what they considered to be the benefits and so on. And they actually were in touch with Melfort in those days, in the same way as Kindersley is in touch with Humboldt about it. They made the resolution to apply for city status at the June 2000 meeting of council. And the application was approved by the province, and the new city council then met on November 7th and immediately adopted a bylaw which basically outlined the duties of the city commissioners, what the terminology was at that time. Now, the basic reasons that they moved to city status are sort of summarized with the following points. They had continuing growth over the previous 9 years, which resulted in a population of over 5,000, and their projections were for this to continue. Infrastructure funding, interestingly enough, infrastructure funding was an important part of their decision. The cities, at that time the province had an infrastructure program, and the cities took their share of the money and pooled it, and it was distributed on a per capita basis. And so the town, as a town, was only able to apply for funds, and it was sort of an application-based process, and they would either get it or they wouldn't get it. But quite positive. There was very little negative, and there was not any sort of major effort to deter council from the path of seeking city status at all. There were a few residents, Senator remembers, of talking about Humboldt was just trying to join the big boys club, and instead of being the biggest town in Saskatchewan, was then going to be the smallest city. There were some articles in the local newspaper, and certainly the town had a newsletter in those days, and those articles and that information were about the details and clarifying some misinformation that was out there. There was a bit of misinformation. Well, taxes are automatically going to go up because you're a city, and everybody's salary is going to have to go up because you're a city. None of that, of course, was true, and the council of the day had to do some communications about a few of those issues. But, you know, the reports, the information that I've been able to pick up is that the process at the time was pretty straightforward and quite positive, and it was based on some pretty clear communications out in the community about the advantages. And that infrastructure item was as important in 2000 as it is today, of course. The census numbers, in 96, Humboldt census showed a population of just over 5,000. In 2000, it went up a bit. It went up by about 100. In 2006, and I was on council at that time and just become mayor, our numbers dropped to just below 5,000, 4,998. You know, that was quite concerning, just what the population drop was all about. But in 2011, we were up to 5,678. We had a 13% increase in population over that period. And our current population estimates are that we're somewhere over 6,000. And based on SaskHealth numbers and various projections that we're using, we figure it's about a 1 to 2% a year population growth. So the next census coming is going to be pretty important to us. Give us a more accurate picture of where we're at and what that growth factor looks like, and how this sort of economic downturn is affecting our community's growth and development. But that's sort of, I think, something every community is looking at. It's not directly related to the city status question. But I think one of the questions that has come up at our council over the last few years, and certainly the 2006 census was an example, was really how accurate those numbers are. And if Humboldt over the last few years, we have sort of like Fort McMurray, we have the shadow population that's living in campers and living in apartments. We've had a bit of that, living at the campground, and so sometimes we think we're not necessarily capturing our full population. So in my discussion with our city clerk, Sandra, who was here at the time, and the previous mayor, Mayor Cordy, who basically took over. Basically, it was a done deal when he became mayor, and he was certainly supportive of it. We just sort of, their conversation was just highlighted the wider range of powers and decision-making that was available under the Cities Act. It was a bit of a, you get to control your own destiny more effectively in a whole number of areas. And the City Act has been updated since then in a whole number of areas and provides a lot of discretionary ability to do the things that community wants and needs to do. The other area that our city staff here really highlighted has been beneficial is the valuable advantage that the city's network provides. There's a city clerks group, there's a city treasurers group, there's a city engineering group, there's a city managers connect a lot, and of course there's a city mayor's group. There's much less reliance on municipal affairs or SUMA policy advisors, although we certainly still connect with them and do utilize their resources and their expertise as well. But this whole network of connecting with the other cities has been identified by our staff as one of the most critical advantages of becoming part of the city's group. And, you know, it gets very specific, relying on the experience, the expertise. Those other cities, including the large cities, have shared an awful lot of expertise with us and been extremely helpful in a number of ways. Now, this does not say that towns can't do the same thing and don't do the same thing. I'm sure they do. But we've certainly, and our staff has certainly found that to be extremely helpful and extremely valuable, especially with the journey we've been on the last number of years as a growing community. And I think Kindersley is going through the same kinds of things. There's a lot of new challenges that you didn't have before when you were sort of just staying stagnant at a certain level of population. Since we've been planning for our community to grow as significantly as it has, and we expect it to over the next number of years, this has become really important. With regards to those tax classes, this is certainly something the city has used. It's part of our annual process to try and determine the fairest and most effective way to raise taxes. So we've certainly used those tools. I can't say for sure that we've got it right. We've identified 4 or 5 of the other cities that we regularly compare ourselves to, and we certainly find that different communities do things differently. Just back to some of your questions. Expenses to make this change were minimal. Basically, Sandra, our city clerk, tells me they had to replace a bunch of signage and some stationery, but it was pretty minimal expense change. In relation to some of the other questions you asked about the culture of the community and changes, I think we often use the expression here that we want to act more like a city in the way that we do business and the way that we do things. And this, of course, is in terms of the kind of services and programs and our ability to meet the expectations of the community. So things like bylaw enforcement, building inspections, servicing agreements, planning and communication, the different kinds of policy development and operational procedures. We've really been on a journey for, I would say, ever since we became a city, of improving, upgrading, renewing those. And as we've been doing that, of course, we're all constantly communicating with the other cities about how they've done things and what they're doing. We really rely on the experience and the expertise of those other communities. And I think being part of the city's group is allowing us to make those improvements and deal with those issues a lot better and a lot more effectively. In terms of economic development, this is really hard to measure. And to measure the economic impact of us changing from a town to a city. We have a potash mining industry that's growing here. We have a very strong agricultural manufacturing industry in our region, strong ag sector. We're a major service center. All of that would be the same whether we were a town or whether we were a city. So it's hard to say whether being a city is much of a factor, but I think it's put us in a better position to respond to some of the challenges as well as some of the opportunities. It doesn't mean as a town we couldn't have done this, but in the Saskatchewan context, I think it's much better to be part of this cities group. The Alberta model is quite different. You know, I use, for example, the town of Stony Plain. Our former city manager here left Saskatchewan and became the administrator of the town of Stony Plain. Well, you know, that's a growing, vibrant community just outside of Edmonton, and certainly as a town, you know, it certainly hasn't slowed them down in being a very effective and a great community. We've developed, and again, talking about the economic development pieces, and again, I'm not sure how this plays into the city versus town question, but we've developed a really close and positive relationship with our Chamber of Commerce, and we're trying to develop that partnership notion a lot, as I'm sure you guys are in Kindersley. Trying to work with them on the business development and retention, tourism, labor attraction, all of those kind of things. They certainly share with us that they feel being part of the city's group is a very important asset for our community. So they're very supportive of that decision that was made way back in 2000. We've recently developed a business improvement district downtown, and we're certainly participating in a regional planning group called the Mid-South Municipal Alliance. We feel as a city we're better positioned to develop these kind of relationships. We're a regional hub, we're a service center, and we want to be a leader and a supporter of all of those kind of regional initiatives. The concern we have is that sometimes we can be seen as trying to tell everyone else what to do. Because we're the city, as opposed to the towns or villages or the RMs that are part of our region and our regional group. But that's not really a city or a town factor. It's more of a question of how we work together as municipalities, and we still have our struggles in working together. And like I say, it's not a city or a town issue. It's just the whole importance of regional planning and the willingness of everybody to get together and to work together is both the challenge and the opportunity. So just to wrap up with a few comments, I think being a city has really benefited Humboldt in a lot of ways. The town administrator in 2000, a fellow named Willard Struck, he ended his report to council with a statement. There appears to be little reason not to adopt city status, even if it was simply for the sake of generating publicity for the community, he added. I was fortunate to become mayor when we were already a city, so I can't imagine, on a personal note, being a new mayor, not being part of that city mayor's group, and all the benefits that group has provided both to myself as a mayor, indirectly to our council, and certainly to our city manager as well. My advice to your community is to keep moving forward in a positive way. I know that you've put this in front of the community already. I think you're talking about shaping the community of Kindersley for the next 10, 20 years. And being one of Saskatchewan's several cities, small cities, is a really good group to be part of. And I don't have anything to add. I hope I've captured some elements of all of the questions you've asked, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions that come out of what I've just shared with you.
Is there any other ones from council? I got one, I guess I can think of just quick off the top of my head, Malcolm, if you don't mind. Have you found any difference? I know that originally when we got into this and some of the discussion originally was talking about the police force and how that has changed. Have you guys found any difference in how that has been run? Okay,
excellent. Yes. First of all, are you paying into the policing contract right now?
Yes.
Okay. We were paying into the policing contract at a certain level, and when we became a city, we moved up to the 70% level. But because we had been previously paying in, it wasn't a huge adjustment. Now, in the regulations at the time, or the process at the time, it talked about we'd have to form a police commission. Well, that's since changed. We have a structure now where we have an administration committee, and basically that's our police board. So the RCMP attend our meetings 4 times a year, and that's basically our police commission. I don't know if that answers your question. Was that the kind of conversation you guys were having?
I think
So
Yeah, I think we've looked at a couple different options, and that definitely is one of them.
Yeah. So we simply have used one of our existing committees, which is what they were doing even before we became a city.
Okay. I've got two questions here. I've got Councillor Jansen first, and then Councillor Bieber.
Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
I heard your comments about the shadow population, and certainly our former mayor, that was a concern to him as well. Often, I think he mentioned 1,500 people as part of our shadow population. I shouldn't say that is the exact number, but that was something John had mentioned. And certainly our former mayor has also benefited in being invited to the city mayor's caucuses. He'd come back with great information that he was able to share with us. So I think there was a benefit to the other cities and to our mayor by having the other cities invite him. And certainly I think our geographic location is important in this regard as well. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Councillor Bieber.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Mayor Eaton. I was just wondering, I guess I got a couple of questions, but the one about RCMP, is it not true, even if we decided not to be a city, but our population is over the 5,000, we are trapped into that 70%? Is that not true?
That's exactly true, yeah. That's where you're headed as your population increases, yes. That's my understanding anyways.
That's been brought to our attention quite a few times. And I guess if I may, just to carry on, did it make any difference? Okay, you said as a city, you were over the 5,000 mark, and then the per capita coming in, and then you dropped below the 5,000 mark, only by 2, but still. Did that make any difference with money coming in for revenue, like from the province?
Well, yes, it certainly did, because all of those grants are based on that census number. And when we dropped that year, we really questioned the census process in 2006 in our community. We just felt that that can't be the right number. But, you know, there's nothing you can do. The census is over. When the census process came along in 2011, we were all in as a community and as a city. We advertised, we promoted, we communicated with the census leaders in our community, really talking in our community about how important that census is. You know, sometimes you get people feeling, well, I don't want to fill out that form. That's the federal government wants, you know, I don't want to help the federal government. Well, it's not the federal government you're helping. It's a city you're helping. It's the community, because we need everybody to be counted, because that turns into the dollars that we get through revenue sharing and through various other per capita programs. The whole census thing is a really important process, and I think as communities, we have to really get that message out to our citizens that this census is more important to us than it is to Ottawa.
Thank you.
That's a good statement.
On the revenue sharing piece, there is a slight difference between, you're in the town pool for revenue sharing. The city per capita is slightly less than the town. That was just the way the formula was created, to try and create some equity. It's not huge, significant dollars. I don't have the numbers in front of me, sorry.
Well, that's fair. I got a quick one here from Deputy Mayor Sackville.
Thanks for joining us tonight, Mayor Eaton. The question I had for you was, it was kind of a tough one, I guess, for yourself. The question I wanted to ask tonight was if you had received any different attention as far as the provincial government's concerned when you became a city. Now, I appreciate you mentioned that you yourself weren't there when they incorporated, but has there been any comments or questions from your administration, or can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I believe in a couple of ways, and I guess I'll tack it back to the City Mayor's Group. The City Mayor's Group meets twice a year. This May, we're going to be meeting in Meadow Lake. We move around different communities, so if Kindersley becomes a city, Kindersley will get a turn. In the fall, though, we meet in Regina, and we have a reception with all of the MLAs on the Wednesday evening of the meeting, and we invite both the government and the opposition MLAs. And it's a social. It's kind of like a little wine and cheese type of an approach. It's basically intended to meet people, to have conversations, to build relationship. And I'll stress, with both government MLAs as well as opposition MLAs. The City Mayor's Group has certainly taken the position. The opposition is part of government. We need to communicate with them as well. They need to know what our concerns and our challenges and the kind of directions that we're trying to point the province in. So that's an important piece. Our city managers are part of that as well. We also, though, have had special meetings at certain times. We've had special meetings where a delegation of city mayors will meet with, for instance, the Minister of Finance around the revenue sharing questions. A delegation might meet with our minister. We've done that on occasion. Minister of Environment, and so on. So now SUMA does this through their mechanisms as well, sort of in an advocacy role. But the City Mayor's Group has tackled some in very specific topic ways and made some connections with various government departments. Now, communities do this as well. I'm sure Kindersley from time to time has done that. But I think it gives us a little bit stronger voice when we show up as a City of Humboldt representative at one of those delegations, and you've also got the Mayor of Regina and the Mayor of Moose Jaw, and the Mayor of Yorkton sitting at the table as well, So it puts us in a position, I think, with the provincial government where they're hearing our messages as all of the cities, large and small, and it helps us build a relationship with those ministers. Even though we're a small community, we're still very interested in building those relationships. And those relationships then, and those issues sort of trickle down then to the city manager level or the different administrative levels of the city, as well as the ministry officials, for instance, in the government and relations department. So I think we have a much better presence. I think we're much better connected to some of the policy work that the province is considering and the kind of policy work we want the province to be considering. So I think it's been very helpful that way.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor McTaggart.
Hello, Mayor Eaton. Councilor Bob McTaggart. I was just wondering, there's been talk around Kindersley over the years that if we become a city, the structure of our fire department will have to change, i.e. we'll have to have a paid fire commissioner, fire chief, and all of that. How did you guys address that particular issue, or is there any basis for that whatsoever?
Well, I can't speak to any particular changes that went on specifically in the structure of our fire department. We had a fire chief who just retired a couple of years ago that served the community for 25 years in that role. Started out as a volunteer fire chief. Is your fire chief currently paid? Is that a paid position?
No, it's a volunteer position.
So your department is completely volunteer?
At the present time,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So I would have to do some checking to see whether that was a result of becoming a city or not. But we've had a paid fire chief position for a number of years now. And it's made our fire department just better. We also have a deputy chief now. We have a Rural Fire Protection Association an agreement though, so we're serving some rural areas. And they're also doing some building inspections, and they also do the work of the fire commissioner's office around fire inspections.
Okay.
So that's definitely a good question. Not one that came up in my notes at all. But we certainly we have 2 full-time firefighters on staff, and the rest of our department is all volunteer or casual paid on call, as I like to call this.
Perfect. If I may, one other question. Your connections for provincial, I guess, government connections and that, are you guys involved at all in the healthcare issue at all? Or has it made a difference to healthcare in your region, Humboldt becoming a city? Or do you even want to comment on that?
Yeah, the city has been very involved in our new hospital project because we had to raise 35% of the construction costs. And that was basically came from I think there were 21 municipalities who contributed to that. And, Humboldt basically, it's one of those things that we basically took the lead on. And of course, because of population, we had to make the biggest contribution. So of the 35%, Humboldt basically contributed half of that. So we were pretty close to contributing almost 20% to the construction costs. So we were certainly very involved in that. We were in the advisory committee. We were out there talking to the other municipalities about sharing in the costs. We've been involved in doctor recruitment retention committee. We didn't take the lead on that. Our Chamber of Commerce took the lead, but we were very supportive and very involved in that. We were in a bit of a crisis for a period of time, and we're out of that now. We're involved somewhat in some of the conversations around our long-term care home here and some of the needs that we have around that. So I think even though it's not our responsibility or our mandate, I think all of our communities are very interested in what's going on in healthcare and those kind of services in our communities. So it's hard not to get involved. And as I say, we're trying not to take the leadership role in all, but we certainly, when a community group comes together, we certainly want to be supporting them to do that work. So I think it is really important that we get involved in trying to improve and develop the healthcare services in our community. Being a city, does it make us? I don't think it's any different whether you're a city or a town. You're going to have that same interest, and you're going to want to be involved.
Thank you.
One quick one here, Mayor Eaton. In regards to, as the mayor of a city today, what benefits do you see at present Kindersley, with Kindersley being a city, what benefits do you see that this would present? And obviously, I think I'm taking away the access to networking and whatnot with the city managers group. What would you see as kind of our second top reason, I guess, for doing it?
Well, I think it's, and I'm not sure what words to use here, but it puts you in a different league. I think it puts you up a notch or two. When people are outside of our province, and I'm sure you have people outside of your province, looking for places to invest, looking for places to do business, looking for places to do development, and so on and so forth. I think they're looking for the growing communities, and being a small city in Saskatchewan is a good gig, a good deal. There's nothing wrong with being a large town in Saskatchewan, but I think the biggest advantage is it moves you up a notch and puts you in a little bit of a different league. And I don't want that to sound disrespectful to the many great large towns that we have all over this province. But that's just what I think it does. In the eyes of people who are looking to do business, invest, and build and grow and develop business and communities, I think it puts you in a different league.
Good, thank you. Is there any other, Tom, did you have any questions from the chamber or anything?
I do not.
Anyone else? Bernie?
Hi, Mayor Eaton. It's Bernie Morton.
thank you
Hi,
so much.
Bernie.
Thank you so much for joining with us, and we certainly appreciate the partnership that we have with Humboldt. It's been a very rewarding one from our standpoint, both at the political and at the administrative level. Sort of picking up on what you had said earlier, that it brings you to a different level. Certainly, we've encountered that with certain businesses that we've been trying to attract to Kindersley, and they've been interested because of Kindersley's growth. As you probably know, we've been identified as a rapid growth area by the province. But you know, it's the cachet of being a town versus a city that, in the minds of some businesses looking to invest, while they're interested in all the different plans that we have and how rapidly we're growing, some have a difficult time getting over that cachet of a town versus a city. So we do see that as well. Have you identified any particular concerts or special events that perhaps Humboldt, the city of Humboldt, has been able to attract that maybe as a town you may have lost out on that opportunity?
I think the Royal Bank Cup would be an example. I'm not aware that the Royal Bank Cup has been in any small town Saskatchewan community, or would be. And of course, you got to have an SHL team. But even across the country, I think they're typically looking at larger communities. And you know, even though we're a small city, we're a city. We're not a town. So that would be one example. I think certainly, you know, we've looked at, you know, we had the Winter Games here in 2003. I think it just gives you a sense that you have more capacity when you're a city, more ability to bring the pieces together that you need to bring together to do what you need to do to host those kind of events. You know, we've had the Seniors Games here. These are all events that I'm not aware that they, and maybe they do and I'm not aware of it, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware that they find themselves locating or giving the bid award to the smaller towns. And again, that may be unfair, but I think that's the reality of what some of those organizations are looking for when they want to put on those kind of events.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. And one quick follow-up. Certainly the legislative flexibility that a city has under being under the Cities Act versus the Municipalities Act is one that we have identified certainly as a true benefit to becoming a city versus remaining as a town. Are you aware of any borrowing restrictions that there may be for capital projects that a town may encounter versus being a city?
I am not, no.
Okay.
I am not. You know, that might be the kind of conversation you want to ask our city manager, other city managers, Bernie.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know of any, no.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Councillor Jen?
I just wanted to add a couple comments. Certainly, Kindersley did host the Sask Winter Games. That would be 91. So we did host that. And back in about 86 or something, we had the World Youth Baseball here as well. So we have hosted some pretty prestigious events. But I agree with you. I think having that city status just opens the door a little wider. So many thanks again.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Anyone else? Any other comments? No, I'll wrap it up, and I appreciate again your time, Mayor Eaton, in regards to going through this with us. It's our plan, I think, is to take this, and we'll do another public meeting again to inform our public and answer questions in a few weeks, likely as part of our council meeting one time. We'll open it up to the public. But this is definitely a big help in doing that, and it's we appreciate your time in doing this.
No, very good. And it was interesting looking back over the old minutes and the old packages, and Interestingly enough, we don't have a lot of material on this. Back in those days, they didn't keep as many files as we do now.
One of the bylaws we had found interesting was that if you go to city status, you have the option to rename the community, and so we've been throwing out some different names out there, but obviously that wasn't something Humboldt was looking at.
No, Baron von Humboldt would not put up with that.
Again, Malcolm, we appreciate your time, and thanks so much for joining us tonight.
You're very welcome. Good luck with it. And I sent you the information about that May City Mayor's meeting. If it works for you, great.
You bet.
Be in touch.
Thanks,
Thank
Malcolm.
you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the benefit of the people that are here, this is not common knowledge yet, but the intent of our council is to rename the community Sackville.
Yes. City of Sackville.
Let's do that.
We want to do that as the last thing, the last term of our council, because we want to end with one really great thing. One really great thing.
Is there any other comments in regards to the city status? I thought that was a really good meeting. That was very informative. He had a lot of good things to say. So,
One comment, and I remember, quite a few years back, we were looking at city and the remuneration of, or I don't know what you want to call it, that it is lower per capita as a city, and he mentioned that, but very minimal, but it still is, and I failed to see the reasoning behind that. I don't know, but I know there's far more other than that money coming in. I know that's going to be a point against.
I could maybe address that if I
please
could. So the pool of funds that are available for cities is a far greater share than it is for towns. And so the percentage in terms of population is just slightly less. So there's more funds that are available. Your per capita share is a little bit less for a city than it is per town.
Thank you. After listening to Mayor Eaton, it's obvious that he thinks that moving to a city status has been beneficial to the city of Humboldt, and I think he was very articulate in outlining a lot of reasons why. And I think it just basically makes me more interested in moving down that road. I think he did get a very good presentation. I think it'd be very good for the town of Kindersley to move to the city of Kindersley if we can jump through the hoops. And there's a couple of things that we have to straighten out here and take a look at and provide or get some more information on. But overall, what I heard him say is what we've been hearing as a group for a few years now. And it's just that he's reinforced most of that and from his own experience. So anyways, I think it was a really good idea, and I'm glad that we talked with him.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now I understood him to say Humboldt was the 14th city?
13th.
And then Meadow Lake was after that, I think. Does that make sense? Meadow Lake and maybe
Middle
Mormon?
Lake is 17th, I believe.
Was it 17th or something? Because I think Mormon was after these guys too.
Mormon was the last one, I believe.
Mormon was the last one.
He said they made a city in 2000, so they've been there 16 years.
See, Martinsville was after these guys, Mormon, Meadow Lake. There's another one in there.
He's been the mayor of Humboldt for 10 years. He was in 2006, so I mean, he's had a lot of experience and a lot of background to rely on when he's talking about that as well.
And former mayor England alluded a lot to the
Absolutely.
city mayor's group and that comments. I'm going to attending SUNA. It's just a different conversation when you split up into villages and northern communities. You got your towns and then you got your cities. It's just a different set of information that you're getting at those meetings. You really have to be astute, I think, to attend and have some sway there. Whereas the other groups, I think, it's a little bit less formal, where there's not as much maybe background reading and whatnot. So.
And it's the same at the administrative level. I mean, we have planners and we have engineers on staff. When we're having our discussions with the towns, while those discussions are fruitful, the challenges that we're facing far more align with the cities than they do. And in fact, all of our plans that we've been embarking on, we heard from Mayor Eaton, who said that after they became a city, they embarked on all that. We've done most of that legwork already. And so it's far easier to have those discussions with the cities because that type of planning aligns more with them. Many of these other communities don't even have, they're struggling to get 1 or 2 or 3 plans up, let alone 12 or 13 or 14 that we have.
Thank you, Mayor. So the information I guess the takeaway points that I brought out from this meeting was, number one, is getting more info on the fire structure, that if that changes because we're a city. I know it's been a predominant question around the community for quite a while now. And also the one that Mr. Morton brought up about borrowing limits and does it affect how we can manage our money a little differently? Those would be the 2 main points I'd like some more information on anyways. Thank you.
You also have made a comment about electrical surcharge. I'm not sure if that's charge taxes for the electrical boxes or what that alludes to, but
we have that in town.
Right, but is it the 5 or the 10% or?
I believe it's 5, isn't it?
So it's fixed. The question would be, as a city, whether or not you have some flexibility in raising that, and that's basically one of the revenue sharing tools. So a lot of the things that we've learned, not only is there a greater pot available for cities, but there's greater flexibility in terms of the different pieces of legislation. So to date, everything that we've learned about the fire chief, that there is no requirement to have but I'd like to get that in writing. From them. We're still currently working on the business plan. We will meet the deadline that council has given to us to present the business case, and the next steps would be after you analyze that business case, and that will form the part of the application that will go to the province. It would be a resolution of council. So we would recommend that the next step is that when we have that business case, we would present that to you in a public forum, make that available obviously to the public, and have an open forum and meeting to allow the public to answer any other questions that they may have. And I would hope and expect that this would be a free-flowing discussion right now with the community. We'd welcome anyone who has comments. I know that certainly I get a few comments and questions from members of the public who will call into my office and ask, but most of it is just about information sharing, and that will be the communications exercise to make sure that we're informing the public as best we possibly can, making sure that everyone feels comfortable. They may not necessarily like the answer, but at least they know that the answer has been provided to them.
Any other comments?
I'm not sure if it's out of line or not, or maybe, Tom, would the Chamber of Commerce like to say anything regarding the city status at all at this present time, or just kind of think about it for a bit, or what?
Don't know why you would. There's absolutely no reason not to move forward from a Chamber of Commerce standpoint. And we have had some discussion on that, but
yes.
Not great detail because we don't know a lot about it. So we're not privy to what the negatives might be. And I'm sure that as we move forward with a little more communication, then we'll have some more questions. But the talk is, why wouldn't you? So.
Is there anything that we can do as a council specifically to provide you with more information to help you with those discussions?
I think probably, the big thing from a Chamber of Commerce point of view, the biggest, I think, anyway, from my thoughts are that the ability to take your tax structure and diversify it a little bit and make it a little more fair so that there's not just 3 ways of taxing, right? So then you can take a look at, what benefit there is to small business, and that's probably the biggest. We have other concerns in regards to expenses, but that doesn't have anything to do with becoming a city as far as
exactly. Thanks.
Yeah.
In closing then, again, it was a fruitful meeting. I'd like to do something for Mr. Eaton on behalf of the town. Pretty sure I'm going to go to that city board meeting about it.
I'll arrange for something, we can bring it up when we attend, yeah.
Other than that, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll wrap this up. Moved by Councilor Jensen, seconded by Councilor Dewar, that the council of the town of Kindersley agreed that the meeting adjourned at the hour of 6:52 p.m. All those in favor? Thank you, gentlemen, on short notice.
Yep, you guys all get so.